Hi, my name is Rebecca Jefferson, and this is my final project for Labor Relations at Liberty University. Today I will be discussing the case of John Arnett, who was a truck driver for Saga Food Services. If you will go ahead and continue on to the slide labeled Intro. John Arnett, a truck driver for Saga Food Services, has a collective bargaining agreement. For those of you who do not know what a collective bargaining agreement is, it is a contract resulting after the collective bargaining process where the provisions are written down and bound into a legally enforceable collective bargaining agreement. Now, Arnett works Tuesday through Friday, with Saturday, Sunday, and Monday as his weekends. After recognizing Labor Day, which was on Monday, on Tuesday, which is his Monday, and calling in on Wednesday for a personal day, his holiday pay is questionable. The union claims that he contacted Saga Food Services and took a personal leave day. Therefore, he's entitled to his pay. Our company states that he is in violation of his contract and did not fulfill Section 7.03b of his bargaining agreement by failing to come to work the day after Labor Day. Now, if you will continue on to the next slide. As the Director of Human Resources for Saga Food Services, my job duty includes industrial relations responsibilities. This presentation will provide information regarding why John Arnett is not entitled to his holiday pay, based on the contract and on his actions. The point of concern I will address include the contractual language, the intent, and past practices. If you will continue on to the next slide, we will discuss the description of this case. John Arnett works 10 hours a day, Tuesday through Friday. In the event that a holiday falls on a Monday, he would be entitled to that holiday on a Tuesday. John took Tuesday off and also called in on Wednesday for his personal leave day. The contract states the employee shall have worked his full schedule workday immediately after the holiday except for proven sickness or injury. Saga Food Services denied him holiday pay, so the union filed a grievance against the company, arguing that Arnett did fulfill the contract. If you will move along to the next slide, we'll discuss the description of my position. As the Director of Human Resources, I support the company's decision. As one article states, companies have turned to arbitration to resolve cases more quickly and to reduce damage awards. In interpreting the contract, we use the same approach as arbitrators: contractual language, intent, and past practice, which can be found in your textbook on page 323. The collective bargaining agreement was unambiguous, meaning clearly expressed. There is a clear interpretation of the contract, and John never claimed he was sick or injured, which are the only exceptions to this contract. Now, if you will move on to the next slide, labeled contractual language. In looking at contractual language, arbitrators try to use ordinary and popular meanings of words and place more weight on specific clauses rather than on general ones. Section 7.03 of Article 7 provides specific guidelines for holiday pay. John Arnett chose to not come into work the Wednesday immediately following Labor Day. It is clear that he is in violation of his contract. As one article states, the lesson here is that the more clear the language, the less likely there will be disputes like this, which seem to shift all the burden to the employer. In our case, the language was clear, but in other cases, it is very important that the collective bargaining agreement have contractual language that is unambiguous. It is now time to continue to the slide labeled intent. In determining the intent, we must answer the question, what meaning did the parties intend when negotiating a clause? In this case, in order to prevent staffing issues, employees are required to work the day before and the day after a holiday. While the contract does say that the shift manager can waive the rule in advance of the holiday, John Arnett waited until the day after the holiday to advise the supervisor that he would not be coming into work. This rule is in place to ensure proper preparation for staffing. Now we will continue on to the next slide labeled Past Practices. Past practice is important in determining how to interpret contract clauses. This can be found on page 323 of our textbook. We can only assume that Saga Food Services has treated employees such as John with situations such as this in the same manner in which we are handling John's situation today. Communication between management and employees is key. As one article states, if the company were forced to pay benefits without change based on a creative interpretation of a collective bargaining agreement, hundreds of companies would have been vulnerable to similar suits, and extra costs that could have harmed other employees. Now we will be moving on to the next slide labeled Plan of Action. Though our decision is not in favor of John Arnett, we will not be firing him. My Human Resources Department and I have established a statement of grounds, which is a written statement of the disciplinary action following the decision of this particular case. Our next step will be to hold a meeting with John Arnett to discuss his temporary suspension without pay. A recent article from the New York Times described a situation much more severe than our case here today. The situation that he described was NBC News broadcaster Brian Williams, who exaggerated his role in a helicopter episode in Iraq. NBC suspended Williams for 6 months without pay. NBC's hoping that this 6 months will allow him time to cool off and understand the inappropriateness of the situation. While Arnett's situation is not as severe as Williams, we as in a human resources department decided to give Arnett a 1-week suspension without pay. The final thing we must do is inform the employee of our decision and provide a right of appeal. Instead of terminating John, we will use him as an example to other employees. This will show his colleagues that we are willing to discuss these issues, such as holiday pay, and hold employees accountable to their contracts and agreements. We don't want to lose our hardworking employees. Now we'll be moving on to our final slide labeled Conclusion. In conclusion, I value our hardworking employees, and I will work with them to understand their benefits and their rights. Our textbook states that grievance procedures provide fair, orderly, and efficient methods of resolving rights disputes. We found this true as we successfully completed the grievance procedure and was able to show John our reasoning for not paying him holiday pay. The textbook also states that employers benefit from an institutionalized system of conflict resolution that avoids strikes and other disruptions. Thus, discipline and grievance policy procedures go hand in hand in the way of progress for our organization. I believe this will help enable the workers of our company to create a conducive and comfortable work environment. I appreciate you watching my presentation and hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much.